Seven Nation Army couldn't hold me back.
Welcome to the Heat versus the World podcast. And now, stand up and make some noise for your host, Joel Jacobs.
What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of Heat versus the World post-Thanksgiving. I hope y'all had a great holiday, man. You know, it was a good time to be with the family and everything. And it's also a good time to be a Heat fan as well, because in case y'all haven't seen last night's game, the Heat went in and they beat the Raptors, and they've now won 4 of their last 5 games. My apologies for the fact that we did not do a pod at all last week, guys, because it was kind of weird. The Heat weren't going to be playing for like about a week, and we just couldn't, in my mind, we just couldn't do a pod when nothing's just going on just yet. But the Heat came back and, they handled business against Dallas. Great win against them after blowing out the Sixers just about a week before that. So we go around and we beat Dallas. We then follow it up against the Bucks, and I ain't gonna lie, I know a lot of people were pissed about that game. The reason why I know everyone was pissed was because, in case y'all didn't know, Giannis ended up being out for that game. And despite that, Damian Lillard came out and did his thing. And if you're someone who's still upset about the whole situation that happened, not this summer, but the summer before that, this was not a game to watch because the dude was cooking. He had I think 22 to end the first half. I think I'm not completely sure. The brother was cooking. He had 37 points to end the night, and the Heat did come up close because we were down by 22 at one point, but we did end up coming back into the game, but we did fall up short at the end. And although it was a discouraging loss because of the fact that this was a Giannis-less team, I mean, trap games happen. And I know y'all don't want to see me sound too optimistic after the L's. I understand. But, in my opinion, we're going to beat the Bucks, when they're fully healthy. Once they get Giannis and Dame back, they just can't beat us. And I just don't feel confident in them. Because first of all, it's obvious that this fit they've been trying to do with Giannis and Dame, it's just not working. And Doc Rivers is their coach, all right? So that just makes it completely worse, So all of that being said, I'm not stressed by that outcome at all. To make things a little better after that L, we go against Charlotte, we handle business against them, and we get another W. Nothing more to it. I was a little mad about that game because I thought we had that one, and then all of a sudden I see that we're down by one, late in that fourth quarter. But thanks to Tyler, we end up getting the W regardless. I was a little scared because Jimmy ended up missing a big part of that game due to, a back injury, I believe. But that was okay because he came back for last night's game against Toronto, and dude did his thing, man. The dude has been amazing, by the way. He had 31 game. I remember he went back-to-back 30-point games. What was it? Just last week or so. I forgot who those performances was, but I saw the tweet where they said he was averaging 31.5 per game, and he was doing so much, and it led to the point where, Jimmy's agent even came out and spoke out about this. If I can find a tweet, I can. There it is. So in case y'all don't know, Bernard Lee, or Bernie Lee as he's referred to, that's Jimmy Butler's agent, right? And he's replying to the tweet below saying Jimmy Butler isn't going to be able to do this every night. But the fact that he can still have performances like this tells me everything I need to know. You do not want to see a healthy Jimmy Butler in the playoffs. This led to Bernie Lee and, like I said before, Jimmy's agent saying, why isn't he? Just make him play the point over and over and over again. So all of this being said, looking at those types of tweets, man, I know it's just Jimmy's agent. Of course, he's going to gas him up. But that shows you everything you need to know about this squad. When Jimmy's out there doing what he's capable of doing, this squad's trajectory just changes completely, you know? And I know that was one of the main things people were upset about during the offseason. It was like, oh, well, you know what? If Jimmy cared about the winning more, if Jimmy cared about actually playing real basketball in the regular season, maybe we wouldn't be in the play-in. Maybe we wouldn't be the 7 or 8 seed. Maybe we'd be one of the top 4 teams. Well, not maybe. We would be a top 4 team in the East, but that's not the point. Overall, we're seeing Jimmy Butler go out there and do what only Jimmy Butler can do. And listen, going back to that tweet that I mentioned, like the guy who Jimmy's agent was replying to, I understand where he's coming from because it does seem like Jimmy's at an age where you can't rely on him to play that type of consistent, where you can see him maybe drop back to back 30 pieces and whatnot. I mean, last night he had a great game. He led the team with 26 points. He also could have had a really efficient night, but he intentionally missed 2 shots late in that fourth quarter. One shot that he terribly bricked. He said he didn't do this on he didn't do this on purpose, but you know, if you saw the one specific shot I'm talking about, it was like the final shot of the entire game. He intentionally misses it, which leads to Bam getting the rebound, which gives him the triple double. So shout outs to Bam, by the way. Happy to see him get another triple double. But back to Jimmy, like if it wasn't for those 2 bricks, he could have finished 8 of 12, which is great shooting from the field. And I mention all of this to say that it's a long season, and I know people are still worked up with Jimmy, and I know people don't want me to gas him up too much because at the end of the day, like we're like what? We're not even 20 games into the season, so like I can't just come out here and be like, oh well, you know what? Oh, y'all who said Jimmy wasn't gonna do this or that, y'all need to sign the apology forms and stuff. I'm not gonna come out here and say all of that because first of all, I don't like the idea of doing too much of the I told you so stuff. You know, at least unless I'm really like pissed off. And I'm not at that point yet. But to see Jimmy go out there and play like this, it's encouraging because it shows you that there there is hope for this team, you know? And like I know we played the Raptors last night. They're not that big of a team, but still, like you gotta love the performance you see from the squad. Another big shout outs to guys like Tyler who came out and did his thing like usual yesterday. And I also want to give props to Terry Rozier because it seems like he's starting to slowly figure it out more and more as the season goes on because it was getting ugly, guys. It was getting real bad for Terry. And I want that dude to succeed because everyone's talking about, oh, we shouldn't have done that trade to even get him in the first place. Like we literally like, and I don't listen. People aren't mad about the fact we gave up Kyle Lowry to get Terry. It was more so of the fact that we gave up a first round pick just to acquire the dude in the first place. So it's like, okay, we gave up a whole future first round pick for this dude. You know, the dude is just bricking like crazy, having nights where he's just shooting complete tour dates. Like, why is he here? You know, and I hate it not only because of the fact that I want the dude to succeed in the Heat uniform, but because of the fact that I literally got this man's autographed jersey not too long ago, and I want to be proud of that thing. So if he's stinking it up, then I can't be proud of the fact that I actually have an autographed jersey of this dude. You know, I had to mention that for the one time. All of that being said, like the dude is coming out there and doing his thing. He had like three correct me if I'm wrong. He had like 3 big threes during that game. And one thing that folks was mentioning is the fact that he doesn't need to dribble or anything like that. Just go up there and shoot. That's it. And you know, it's not a coincidence, in my opinion, that he didn't do any of the dribbling and whatnot, and he was able to make those types of shots for the Heat in that game. So if he can keep this up, that's going to be a big W for Miami moving forward. And I say all of this to say that I know people are concerned about this squad, and for me personally, we're 17 games in, like I said before, which is why people say you shouldn't overreact to the W's. And well, while I agree with that, I see where y'all coming from. It should work both ways, you know, like don't overreact to the wins, but how are we overreacting to the L's though, you know? Because at the end of the day, the thing that people gotta understand five of the games I think I saw, we were either like down by three or whatever. Five of the games that we lost, we were either down by three or I think we like led at one point. And I say all of that to say that if those games were just slightly tipped to our favor, we would be, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, I think 14-3. Yeah, I think something like that. 14-3, which is insane to think about. And the only reason why it's not is because we've come across some unfortunate games here and there where our late game execution has been terrible while also trying to figure out how we should go about it in the third quarter because obviously we've had some massive stinkers this year whenever the third quarter comes around. So the fact that if it wasn't for those five unfortunate games, we could be 14-3 right now. That is a huge deal to think about because at least we're not just getting blown out every single game or something that we lose. It's not like that. This is a team that knows how to claw its way back from, you know, certain deficits or being in certain situations. It just needs to work more on the execution late in these games because right now the Eastern Conference isn't even that scary. I mean, listen, shout outs to Cleveland. Congrats on them for playing some of the best basketball we've seen post LeBron era and everything. But it's the Cavs. I mean, I'm not trying to diss them, but I just don't have too much faith in them. Everyone is saying they're like the 2015 Atlanta Hawks, and I don't blame them for thinking that. This is a team who, in my opinion, still has a couple of issues. And I mean, shout outs to Kenny Atkinson for doing a much better job than JB Bickerstaff. But I'm not shook by them. I'm not looking at them and thinking, oh my gosh, if the Heat come across them, it could be a bloodbath. All right. This team made zero moves whatsoever. And I'm just saying, because some of y'all get so mad at the Heat talking about, oh, we run it back, this, and that. Well, the Cavs ran it back too, basically. I mean, aside from the players that they drafted, what new blood is on that team right now? Because everyone was saying, oh, well, you got to trade Darius Garland. The dude is still on the squad, all right? So there's that. Because people thought the dude was gone if Donovan Mitchell signed the extension. Guess what? D. Mitch signed the extension, and Darius Garland is still on the team. So what? That's going on. There was also the whole thing with Evan Mobley, Jarrett Allen. You got to move one of those guys, most probably Allen, to make things work. Guess what? Both of those guys are still on the squad. And I say all of this to say that for a team that literally barely did anything last year, similar to how it was for Miami, aside from the big Alec Burks pickup, you see the way how it plays out. And the reason why I won't say that the Cavs are exactly running it back is because we talked about this in the last pod, and one of the main guys on our show who's touched on it so well has been Kevin. When we quote unquote run it back, it's not really running it back because you're not coming into the season just copying and pasting everything you did the previous year into the following season. So yeah, is the Cavs, kind of running it back? You could say they are because the team is almost identical to what they had last year, but they're not quote unquote running it back because it's not the same exact squad from last year where they're just doing everything that they did that previous year this season. They have a different coach, and obviously they're going to try to redo some of the things that went wrong last year. It's a process. Same thing for the Heat. I know people hate the constant running it backs and stuff that we always talk about, but this squad isn't running it back. They're still trying to figure stuff out on offense. They're still trying to figure out how to make things work and how to get these guys running smoothly on the floor together and try to work out that chemistry between the squad. All of that being said, things will work out accordingly. And like, one thing I just want to give my flowers to is the fact that we got a new starting lineup, all right? Because here's the thing. I didn't know how to feel about the whole Tyler Terry starting lineup with Terry at point guard, Tyler at shooting guard and stuff. It seemed like putting Duncan in the starting lineup was the best way to go about it. And this was another thing we talked about in our previous Heat versus the World show with Kay on the episode. Like, it just seemed like you had to take Duncan and put him into that starting lineup to make things work. And it's not like it's a diss towards Terry, because at the end of the day, we're still going to need him. We're still going to need him to come up big here and there. And he's had some good moments himself. Like, although we lost that Bucks game, the reason why we were still in it was because of Terry Rozier. And I already talked about last night hitting those big shots and him just being able to figure it out. Not exactly dribbling like crazy whenever he got the ball in his hands. Just get it and shoot it. We're seeing him figure it out along with the rest of this squad. And once they do figure it out, which by God's grace will be hopefully soon if they haven't already, this team has the potential to do something special. What is that special thing? I'm not going to say what it is because I don't want to jinx the squad. Last year, if y'all watched any of our pods, I had Heat winning the championship. I don't care. I'm not doing any of that. As you see below my name, it's game by game because I'm just sitting back, letting each game go by one, and seeing exactly what's going on. Because at the end of the day, not everything needs a reaction. Okay, we fell on this one game. All right, how do we respond after that? What do we take from each game? Not only the negatives, but the goods as well. That's why I can't get too stressed when I'm watching this team do what they're doing. I understand the L's can be frustrating. I see you guys on Twitter. I see y'all on all social media platforms. I saw it after that Bucks game. It can be frustrating, but this is a squad who I'm taking it game by game and I'm doing my evaluations. I'm like, okay, this didn't go out according to plan, if we lost a certain game. But you know what? They did this right. They executed this perfectly. And even though, we should have been down by a lot more points, we still find a way to play good enough where we're only down by like 3 or 4. A huge example was last night, because if you saw our shooting at the beginning of the game, first, second quarter, we were shooting terribly. But guess what? We were only down by 2 or 3 points. And listen, yes, you guys can pin that on the fact that the Raptors aren't exactly one of the best teams in the NBA right now. I understand that. But this goes to show how resilient this team really is. And if it wasn't for some late game execution went wrong, a couple of these L's, like I said before, we'd be 14-3 right now. And this includes L's to pretty good teams in the NBA, like the Knicks, for example, a team that everyone's been high on. And although the Bucks have had, not too big of a start this year, they started like 2-8, I think. Correct me if I'm wrong. Everyone talks about how good the Bucks could potentially be once they figure it out. And shoot, we were down 22, albeit without Giannis. But hey, trap games happen, and we were still able to come back from a 22-point deficit to the point where I think the game was tied at one point. Like, that's how this team is. They're going to be able to make you pissed off one instance, but they're going to be able to get you to the point where you're watching the game thinking that it's over to now, oh my gosh, we actually have a chance to win. What just happened? And it might be frustrating because we still might find a way to lose, or we'll still end up winning. That's fine, because at least this team will get the opportunity to learn what they did wrong and execute, whatever they picked up from those mistakes into these future games when they're in another clutch game situation. And I don't want to say it's exactly like the 2023 season, because that was the year we made it to the finals. It's like a whole different thing. But 2023, we dealt with a lot of painful L's because our late game execution would be terrible. And you know what? We picked up from that. We learned from those late game execution fails to the point where by the time the playoffs came around and we had to we were neck and neck with these teams come the fourth quarter, this Heat team knew exactly what they had to do. And that's why people talk about Jimmy trolling, blah, blah, blah. We've talked about it on this show too. While you can be pissed at that, and I completely understand it, seeing certain guys being able to take the wheel and do certain things, even if they're not exactly doing what you need them to do, it's still big for this team, giving them that type of experience. You know, it's like throwing someone into the pool, right? You're trying to teach them how to swim. You could go through the basics, but some people, they like to throw them in the fire, or in this case, just throw them out at the deep end and just, have them try start swimming ASAP. Like no techniques, no, okay, let's start off by doing this and that. Just simply go into the water and just learn how to swim. Even if you do end up coughing up a little water, just dive in and pick up on skills. Just learn how to swim. That's what we're doing with some of the guys on this team. It's the same thing that we've done with some of the other guys that our fan base has been so hyped about, but then disappointed when they end up leaving. The Gabe Vincents of the world, the Max Struces of the world, the Caleb Martins of the world. We threw them into the water like that, threw them into the fire. And that's why we saw them bowl out when we needed them to come playoff time. So I know it's frustrating. Y'all will be like, okay, why is this guy on the floor? Why is that dude on the floor? I understand it. But this is a team who knows what they're capable of doing. And to get those guys ready to the point where they might go out and do something crazier later on in the season, I'm all for it, because this team, at least this coaching staff, they have my trust no matter what. It wouldn't surprise me if, one guy who's been getting minutes has been Drew Smith, right? Not often, and I know he's missed these last couple games with an injury, but if Drew Smith, don't be surprised if he gets minutes, right? And we end up seeing that brother come in to the postseason and he ends up hitting a couple huge shots here and there. It wouldn't surprise me at all, because that's been the same cycle going on year after year after year with all these guys that we have put this trust into. And I not only with Drew Smith, but I also do want to give my props to Pell Larson, because man, bro, I'm happy for the dude, because I know a lot of people was mad at the pick at first. I think who did we end up selecting first before we? Because here was the thing, right? We didn't get Pell Larson. I think we traded the pick, or we traded whoever we selected at first, and then acquired Pell Larson through that deal or something like that. So I know a lot of people was kind of worked up, but now you're seeing this move work out to the point where we are giving him minutes late in these games. Like he played some late minutes against the Bucks. We saw it again the game after that. Like the Heat trust him, Spo trusts him, and you love to see it. And this is a rookie guy, and I want to give my props to K, because one thing he said on this pod, or was it Biscayne Breakdown, I'm not sure, was that maybe this guy could be like what Christian Brown was for the Nuggets, a couple playoff runs ago, where yeah, this dude's a rookie, but you can still count on him to come out and do some big things when you need it the most, whether if you're only playing him for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, or whatever. So I say all of this to say that we gotta take this a game at a time. It's a great way to really go into the remainder of the season. Like as we're recording this, we have now won 4 of our last 5 games, like I mentioned, at the beginning of the episode. And we just gotta take a deep breath. I know I keep saying that, but it just seems like everyone gets so stressed out after the L's. And even in the games where we win, people say, oh, should we even be proud of this win because we did this bad, we did that bad, or this still isn't working out. This team is still trying to figure out stuff. And no matter how identical this roster might look from last year, it's not exactly running it back. I already told y'all this, and we had Kev say it himself. It's not exactly running it back, because we're still trying to do things differently in a way that can help this team perform better than how they did last year. So I say all of this to say that I'm still very confident in this team. I don't know what their ceiling is, but I have faith in them. I believe in Jimmy Butler. I believe in Bam Adebayo, and yes, I believe in Tyler Hero too. All right, I know after all the craziness that happened last season with Tyler, to the point where we had to keep questioning things about him here and there, we believe in him too. I have faith in him, and I know Bam's been struggling a lot this year, but hey, I have faith in him too. And like I said before, congrats to him on that triple double. I have faith in them, and most importantly, I have faith in Spo as well. When you have Jimmy, Bam, and Spo on your squad, there's nothing for me to be scared about, you know? And at the end of the day, you're looking at three guys who has been a part of not one but two finals appearances. What is it? Three trips to the Eastern Conference Finals and so on. All right. So I'm not worked up about any of this stuff because at the end of the day, we have a long way ahead of us this season. We're only 17 games in. So when some of y'all say we're overreacting to the positives, being like, okay, guys, let's calm down. We still got to watch them play 65 more games or whatever. Well, okay, but let me say that back to y'all when y'all overreact to some of these L's. Because at the end of the day, the L's are gonna happen. No team is gonna go 82-0, and that's something that we just gotta understand. But you know, with every game that comes, W's or L's, take the goods from it, take the bads from it, and just move on with it. You know, because there's no point dwelling on the mistakes that we made when at the end of the day, this is just the regular season. And as long as we're not fighting to be in the play-in like we've been the last couple years, then we're in a good situation to be in. And I know some of y'all still think we're a play-in team because some of these L's have upsetted you guys a lot. But like I said, 65 more games left. All of this to say, my final word before I wrap this up, Miami Heat fans, take it easy. Let's celebrate the goods while also acknowledging the bads here and there, and just call it how you see it. All right, we're a game above 500, so God bless the Heat for that. And hopefully, you know, by the time we do our next episode, we'll be a lot more above 500. All right, so let this be the start of something special, winning 4 of our last 5 games, and let's continue to capitalize on it. I know we have a very difficult schedule coming up. We're playing the Celtics at one point, the Lakers, the Red Hot Cavs. You know, even though, like I said before, I don't buy into their hype, but still, they've been playing good this season. You know, and there's a couple other teams that I haven't mentioned. So it's not going to be an easy week or two, but we're going to be ready for it. I believe in our squad. And if God is willing and they come out there and they get those W's, you better believe me and whoever else on our squad that's been optimistic about this team is going to come on here and let y'all know that this team is not to be reckoned with. All right. So take that as you will. Okay. And I want y'all to watch these pods because if the Heat do perform well, I want y'all to look back at this and say that Joe said this. Joe said this along with the rest of my squad whenever they're able to hop on. All of this being said, man, let's just continue to enjoy this season, the goods and the bads, because at the end of the day, you're always going to have both. You know, just got to take the goods that come with it while also acknowledging the bads, like I said before. All of this being said, man, I hope y'all enjoyed today's episode. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Go ahead and subscribe if you haven't already. Make sure to follow Heat vs. the World on all platforms at HVTW Podcast. And feel free to follow me on Twitter, maybe at JoelKJacob_. We got so much great content heading y'all's way. So please be on the lookout for that. And take care. Hope y'all had a great Thanksgiving. Love you guys. And yeah, hit my music because we out.
Behind my back.
Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time with a brand new episode of the Heat versus the World podcast.